Welcome everyone. So we're here for the autonomous artist talks that are on Zoom, and we're going to have more in person at the gallery this afternoon. So the title of the show, Autonomous, to introduce it, autonomy is defined as self-law. It goes all the way back to 17th century Greek. And so I thought that word would be good for a show taking place during Women's History Month, and to select artists that are really communicating something with their art, that their art is not just about the visual aesthetics, but that they're really speaking to what it is for the women's experience, speaking to what's happening in culture right now, especially surrounding gender and power hierarchies. So autonomy is about being the source of your own behavior, feeling psychologically free and having the ability to control your own life. And it's all about having a choice and a voice. Feeling we're in control of our actions and free from the pressure by others to do things, whether that is, you could probably think of a million things that we are pressured to do, or whether that is pressure on how you think as well. That flexibility to have choices. We don't ignore others' opinions or ideas, but we get to choose whether or not we listen to them. There's no feeling that we have to conform or expectations or coercion. So the artworks in this exhibit are by women who are communicating statements about the complexities of being a self-actualized, self-aware, and self-governing female today, in spite of societal pressures. The themes in the show include dignity, introspection, self-acceptance, and rebellion against objectification, tyranny, or gender expectations. So today with us, we have Jill Weisberg, Camille Eskell. Am I saying your name right? Okay, and T.E.S. or T.E.S, which stands for the Esoteric Sojourner. First we're gonna have Jill start us off with presenting her work, and I'm adding another person to someone else coming in right now. So okay, Jill, you can go ahead and share if you're ready.
Sure. We're working on it. There we go. And oh, I think I forgot to click the thingy with the optimized. So
Yeah,
hold
if
on.
you escape and do it one more time, it'll be fine.
Yeah, let me do that. Please hold. There we are. Okay. All right. So this is my work from about the last 5 years or so. I'm going to go into my She Comes First sculpture in a moment, but I do a lot of mixed media with vintage magazine pages or images mixed with shiny things. And this is to kind of lead the viewer on a journey of thought. And my work definitely is about tropes of feminine qualities. So as you can see here, we have homemakers and then a woman kind of holding on to something that is gold dripping. And
Oh, Jill, I apologize, I forgot to introduce you. So I said I was going to introduce each of you before you started.
Oh,
So
good, great.
do you want me to go ahead and read your bio real quick while you're before you start?
For sure. Here, yeah, go ahead and read my bio and I'll put on.
I totally forgot my plan. Okay, so
I'll switch to about real quick, and so that people can see that there's my picture, and here is my bio, but you can kind of read it if you want also.
well, yeah, I have an edited version in front of me. So
Yeah.
Jill Weisberg, that's about to start sharing her work, is a muralist, mixed media artist, and public art advisor. As a native of Hollywood, Florida, she works with the City of Hollywood CRA part-time as their arts and culture coordinator and has been curating and managing the Downtown Hollywood Mural Project, an exterior project of large-scale contemporary street art ongoing over the past decade with a goal to foster a sense of unity and community. With more than 30 murals and counting, the DHMP is the largest walkable mural project in Broward County and features renowned local, national, and international artists. Jill received both her BFA and MFA in graphic design from Florida Atlantic University. As an artist, she was awarded a Creative Investment Program grant from the Broward Cultural Division in 2016 for She Comes First, which was originally an exterior public art installation, but is currently on view in this exhibition. Jill has exhibited at prominent institutions, including Locust Projects, Design Sublime, Bailey Contemporary Arts, Girls Club, the Truman State University Gallery, Missouri, and Fair and Alternative non-commercial all-female art fair presented by Spinello Projects. Her paintings and large-scale public installations call attention to feminine archetypes and stereotypes interlaced with more challenging notions of feminist theory. Okay, so welcome, Jill Weisberg.
Hi, I'm back. So this is me. It's a picture of me in front of one of the murals that I have curated. That is one of my main gigs, as we all know. As artists, a lot of us have regular jobs and then also do art when we can squirrel away the time. So I am a public art advisor, and I still do some graphic design from time to time. And it looks like I'll be teaching at FAU in the fall, a how to make murals course, which is very exciting. I'm waiting for confirmation, but it looks like something that I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to get to teach college again, which is exciting because I haven't done it in a couple years, in like 10 years or so. Okay, so back to my mixed media paintings. As I was discussing before, lots of female kind of homemaking tropes in this particular series, and I added all of the sequins by hand, and you can see some more gold dripping off because things that I do in my art, specifically as you have seen or will see with the She Comes First piece, is I try to kind of give somebody an idea or a concept that I might have some trouble with myself and make it shiny and glittery, almost like Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. So here we have this woman kind of coveting this gold shiny stuff as it drips around other women doing homemaker homemaker-y things. And you can see she's kind of zoning out. So what is she thinking about? Is she thinking about this? Is she thinking about something else? That's like obviously up to the viewer. This is another one where it's somebody kind of holding on to an item. In this case, it's a blanket. This also speaks to consumerism, how women are used in consumerism to sell things, and this is a more tame version, but I used a cardboard box in the inside, and then there's some a lot of the paint that you see and the stripes, I've all made them myself with house paint, other paint. I use a lot of makeup in my work, powder. This is another one, again, a woman on the top kind of selling. If you look close, it's actually a spray paint can or a Lysol can. And so it's kind of, again, highlighting with shiny materials and vintage magazines, stereotypes, tropes, consumerism, all from the feminist lens. And this is just a quick drawing of peace and feminism that I had done. And then this is another one, just kind of how are we using our faces, our images to sell things. And these are all basically magazines from the 60s and the 70s, some even from the 50s. This is kind of a self-portrait using, again, advertising. It's again, I have a master's in graphic design, so a lot of my push and pull and my thought and provoking people to think about things comes from vintage advertisements. So you can see this is all vintage advertisement. And then this image was taken from a vintage advertisement, but also all of the colors that you see here were from an eyeshadow palette. So all of this here and here and here, any of the colors that you see were created from eyeshadow. And then there's glitter and holographic stuff. And then there's the advertising tagline, "You've come a long way, baby," which, as you remember, is the Virginia Slims, the little thin cigarettes used to lure women to smoke because they were daintier and cuter. And the tagline they've used was a feminist tagline, "You've come a long way, baby." So you get your own cigarettes to kill yourself with. No offense if anybody smokes. This is another kind of surrogate self-portrait, like the last one was, of me, basically what I had talked about with everybody just briefly, kind of staring out the window, looking at beautiful holographic shiny things to distract myself from the news of the day. And like, this is all house paint up here, nail polish, another kind of a pigment I made from some various items. And this one, before I move on to the She Comes First piece, this is a text piece I did that says "holosexual," which I think is very funny because I'm very, very, very attracted to shiny things, which is a big, as you can see, part of my practice. So I did not make this term up. It comes from a nail polish YouTuber, somebody who creates nail polish, and she uses this term a lot because we are the same in that we like the shiny rainbow producing holographic things. I also am a big fan of iridescent and straight up metallic. Speaking of straight up metallic, if I go to public art here, you can see the She Comes First. This is the one in the design district. Before we go there, though, I just want to show you some close-up of a mural I created in 2014 using, you can see up close, the iridescent paint, gold paint, and glitter, trying to emulate makeup or nail polish. And so this was in Wynwood in I think 2010. Of course, it's ripped down now and doesn't exist, but I have painted a number of murals also. So if we move on to She Comes First, this is the third. The iteration that's in Autonomous is the fourth iteration. This is the third iteration, and this was in the Design District in 2019. It came down, and each of the letters is separate, and they're about 36 inches tall. So it's quite a bit. It's quite a big piece, and you can see it there, kind of hanging out in the Design District. This is the Louboutin store, and it got a lot of social media attention because it was in the Design District. This is the second iteration. As you can see, it changes its structure. And this was in Brickell City Center for fair, curated by Anthony Spinello and Zoe Lookoff. And that was really, really cool with a lot of great people. This is the original version of this piece. This is in Fat Village in 2016. And I did get a CIP grant from Broward Cultural Division for this, which is amazing and super helpful. And I will play the video, and the video is super, it makes you see why I wanted to use this material outside. Not that it doesn't look great indoors, because it does, Lisa, but when the wind hits this, it looks beautiful, and it looks like the water. You see how it sparkles? When the wind changes and moves these little sequence, it really kind of comes alive. And this is the same material that they use in billboards, like for watch ads and things like that. So this is a pretty brief but thorough overview of some of my more recent works. I'm going to stop sharing, and then if there's anybody who has any questions, they can feel free to ask me.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm the director of development of DORCAM. I'd like to show you the piece. I can just show you the piece.
We can't really hear you that well, Charlie.
Charlie, you're cutting out a little bit. Can you say one more time? I heard something about it being a good piece. That's all I
No,
heard.
I'm a video feed. I'm standing right in front of the
Okay.
feed. I'm right here at this moment. So I just wanted to show you guys, and Jill, thank you for your contribution to our exhibit. This is amazing, an amazing piece, and everybody's really enjoyed it. So if you wanted to see the piece up close, that's all I wanted to say. So thank you.
Yeah,
Oh.
I saw it up there for a second and it went away. There we go. It's back again.
I see. Okay. Yay. Yeah. And the cool thing about it being up close is I've never had it inside up close. And you know what? It's like really cool to see it so close up and interact with it in that way. Because before it's always been out of arm's reach, because when you put things outside, you kind of want them up and away out of people's reach. Otherwise, it's Miami, you know, people are just gonna like walk away with one of your letters. I don't know. So I've always had it up, and because it's inside indoors, and you know, people can make sure nothing weird happens to it. It's really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, being up close. So thank you, Lisa. It never even occurred to me to show it inside. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I often do things a little non-traditionally with exhibits. So
I love it. I love it.
So I have a question about the, as you mentioned, the glitter and the sparkle is a recurring theme in your work. So how do you see that in relation to femininity? Like, are you reflecting stereotypes, or is it more just that you love, you know, the appeal of the glitter? Is there any irony in that?
Sure. So it actually for real stems from when I was a child. I have always been a visual person, and I've always loved the way that holographic, iridescent, metallic, any kind of those items, it tricks the eye, it plays with the eye. It doesn't seem like it's in reality, because how can that be? It's a two-dimensional thing and you see rainbows. And so it's always just kind of been in my head, and something that I really, really, really enjoy. And then as I got older, I did notice how makeup, or if you're going to a party or disco or strip clubs, you know, glitter is everywhere, and it's very pervasive, and only with women or people that are fluid. I mean, you don't see a ton, although I'm not sure how many heterosexual dudes. I loved the beard, the glitter beard phase. I was like, oh, that is great. But I'm not sure like how many regular guys were doing that. You know what I mean? It's glitter is for special. And then you hear the glitter is the herpes of the art community and things like that, which, you know, I take it with a grain of salt, because I get it. It's very messy. It gets everywhere, but there, you don't have to use just straight up glitter. And I try to use non-traditional ideas of shiny things too. So it's not just like with this piece, that's a commercial. And again, I come from this commercial background, right? So I'm seeing these billboards with like the most amazing shiny things on them. And I researched and found out what it was. And I was like, I'm using that in my work. There's just no way that I'm not. And so, you know, I'm always looking for new, more non-traditional shiny things to use in my work, so that it's a little bit of a shift. And I also use a lot of, I'm like semi-obsessed with makeup. So I'm using that in my work as well. To kind of, it's something that women, and again, fluid people use. I'm super stoked that there's just so many more people using makeup now, because it is such a wonderful thing. And talking about makeup and covering up and making yourself look like you want to look, or you want to see yourself perceived as, is something that once people discover it and learn how to do that, it's something that even if people don't really notice it, you know that you're doing it, and it makes you feel something. It makes you feel special. It makes you feel like you look good. So makeup is also makeup, nail polish, all of those things that women traditionally have used play a big role in my work. Yeah, and so it is semi-ironic, but truly I have been like this since a small child. Always.
Well, it's definitely become a photo opportunity at the exhibit. Camille, you had a question or comment?
What are the letters, the base of the letters made from? Are they wood?
So
Okay.
it's marine plywood. So it's wood, but it's wood that's treated to be outdoors.
I see.
Yeah. I didn't want
And
any.
then I noticed the latticing kind of, is that a type of, not chicken wire, it's the other one that's like chicken wire, but
No,
it's
no,
square.
that's the way that they kind of, you know how you get tiles sometimes if you were
Yeah,
doing
with
a
the,
remodeling and it's on a thing, it's on like a
uh-huh.
ready, that's kind of, they come in units. They come in
Oh,
units, and so you install them in units. Yeah.
oh, okay, very interesting. Yeah, like when you guys, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
They're each
interesting.
about the size of almost like quarter, like
Mhm.
they're really large.
Right, right. That's what
Yeah.
I've seen those pallets, you know, the quarter size.
Yeah.
So you use the, so it's not chicken wire, but it's actually like you would put on a floor or something like that.
No, it's something that advertisers use on billboards. So they come
Okay,
on us, they already come together like in a unit, in a square unit. And then just like if you were to get tile a room that had a corner, you'd have to cut the corner out. So it's just, you can imagine them being tiles already set up with the little
right.
things that
If you
hang
want to see details, I'm showing right now.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so he's going to zoom in for us.
Okay. Thank you.
It's just all on a grid. They
I
all
see,
come,
yeah.
they have holes meant so that you can screw them right in, and it's all weatherproof. I wanted to make sure that it was weatherproof, and it's been out quite a bit, and it's still,
That's
still
great.
going.
That's really cool.
Thank
Very
So
cool.
Jill, when you've had this on view, now not everybody picks up on the double entendre of the she comes first.
Right.
But at the same time, the statement definitely sums up this idea about feminist theory about, wanting to be seen as equals, but at the same time, we have to kind of insist on this visibility toward women, because there's a certain default that we have more, more of a majority of men being seen in things like museums, especially. So it's definitely hitting at one of the core ideas, thinking about feminism or the need for feminism today. So have you ever had anybody get mad about the statement or be confused by the statement in any way?
Yeah, they think it's much more like about a sexual thing and like dirty and you're a dirty girl, like that kind of crap. But a lot of people realize that it is once I explain to them, they're like, wow, that's kind of a racy statement. And I say, well, it can be perceived that way, or you can think about your mother or your sister or how we have not been prioritized in a way that I think it's like one of those things like where we feel like with this piece, I have to overcompensate because still in a way, like in my work life, I cannot tell you how many men will say something to me like, oh wow, your hair looks really pretty today, or like just weird shit that people wouldn't say to a man. And it's like, so I feel that if we don't, in a way, and I'm not saying in a violent, peace and love, not in a violent way, just in a fun art way, or just in a subconsciously kind of, we have to be up, men have these egos and women are work together, but the egos are the reason why I feel like we're still not being paid as much as men most of the time in many fields. It's just not an even playing field yet. And so
women are definitely treated differently, and there's also more of a focus on how women look than about how they're thinking. And so,
Right.
like you say, there's this idea that women are allowed to be touched or be called sweetheart or babied in a certain way, or even have their pregnant bellies touched, like thinking that, those kind of boundaries can be moved more so than it might be the other way around. But I think it really depends on who the audience is, because I've had people, come to the show and not necessarily realize the double entendre part. They're just
Yeah.
thinking about it as a feminist statement, like, so it is interesting. I don't think everybody picks up on that part.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame if they don't, but I love a double entendre. A lot of my work, my text work is around that. I feel like anything
And contradictions as well.
yeah, because I want people to like maybe be confused for a second. And but I'm drawing them in with the shiny thing, right? I'm drawing them in with the shiny thing, and they're like, oh, that's shiny and sparkly, and then they read it, or they look at the piece and they're like, oh, shiny and sparkly, and like they go look, and then the wheels hopefully will start to turn as they're looking at it, like, what is this about? Oh, what does that statement mean? Oh, why are these women coveting shiny glittery products? What, so it for me, it really is. And even with the holosexual, people don't realize that it just means like we're really into holographic materials, and I'm not really a holosexual. It's just a statement. You know what I mean? And it felt like the materials worked with the statement and all that good stuff. But yeah, I think and I don't ever really think it's going to be a completely equal playing field because we are so different as men and women. But I would like to see it closer to parity, I think.
Yeah.
And that's all we can hope for and strive for, you know? Does anybody have any other further questions?
Yeah, anything else for Jill before we go to Camille? Okay, and we can also have more questions at the end. So next we have two more artists who speaking today. So next we have Camille Eskell, who holds an MFA from the Queens College SUNY University and lives and works in the greater New York area. Camille exhibits her work extensively in solo and group shows throughout the US and abroad, including Mexico and South America, and MoCA, Westport, Coral Gables Museum, the Holocaust Memorial Center in Detroit, and Hudson Valley MoCA, to name a few. Her work is in numerous public and private collections, including the Hudson River Museum, Chrysler Museum of Art, the Housatonic Museum of Art, and the Islip Art Museum. She received Artist Fellowship Excellence Awards from the CT Office of the Arts, the New York Foundation for the Arts, and the Connecticut Commission on the Arts. She has received reviews and features in publications such as the New York Times, Art New England, and Huffington Post. Residencies include Weir Farm National Historic Site and the Vermont Studio Center. Camille's practice encompasses 2- and 3-dimensional disciplines, including sculpture, photo-based imagery, drawing, and painting, combined with textiles, found objects, and ready-mades to create layers of meaning. Her multimedia sculptures mine 2 generations of her family's turbulent history as Iraqi Jews living in Bombay, India. Camille felt impelled to explore the psychological legacy that shaped her perceptions, identity, and motivations. The works are hybrids that combine symbols and fabrics from Middle Eastern, South Asian, and Sephardic traditions, garments, and headwear. The materials in Eskell's work map a family journey through the manufacturing of garments and materials, each existing as a form of cultural assimilation and resilience. As a result, her work examines cultural and family dynamics with themes of vulnerability, rebirth, social convention, and the pervasive power structures regarding gender. So Camille, when you're ready, Camille's going to share a few bits of that, I guess. Oh, you're on, Camille, you're still on mute.
Do you hear that
There we
sound
go.
in the background? I tried to shut the heat off, but I can't. I hope it's not too bothersome. You don't hear it? Okay. All right. Hi,
No, I
everyone.
don't notice it.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Camille. Thanks for that. Hi. Thanks for that lovely introduction. So I'm gonna move ahead and I'll start with it's going too fast. Give me a sec. Okay. All right, so the work that's in the show, there's two pieces in the show. That is from the Fez, they're from the Feza Storyteller, which is my newest series, which I've been working on since about 2012. When I started this with, just to give you a basis of what, get a sense of where I started, I was interested in what motivates people, what is their guiding inner theme in a way. And so I started working on the idea of fear. And this whole series is called The Roots of Terror. So it's a lot about how the child experiences fear and terror. Then it moved on to more adult themes. Again, they're always about kind of a psychological state of being. And then these are more series. I started building my own frames, as you could see in the last one. This one was a little bit more about light. I was thinking a little bit about those Rococo, the gold and the blue Wedgwood. Here she's sitting on the proverbial most gold egg, because there's only 11 here. So she's on the most golden. Here, this was, the family owned ultimately, my father, I should say. My uncle started it, my father worked for him until he was left the business. It's a French lace business. So we've had lace around, my whole life. So I started using lace as a symbol for femininity and enmeshment, meaning it's kind of a web that you can't get out of. Then I do sculpture and a 2D work. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Then I moved to sculpture. Whatever my vision is, I use that medium. So this is one of the sculptures from the Truncated series. This actually is owned by this is the Hudson River owns this. Hudson River Museum owns this one. And here I use the idea of tattoos. So the tattoo is flat on the body, and I use the sculptural element to tell what the real story was. So it has to do with appearance and reality in a lot of these works. This was the next series, and this had to do with a kind of a journey of finding yourself. This one is called the Ezekiel series. It's just very loosely about the idea of the valley of the dry bones, which is really a resurrection myth. That's what it is. So, but I use that as a psychological base for this particular series. Actually, our family name is Ezekiel. It was changed to Eskell it was Americanized. So here you're going to see some people wearing fez caps, and those are members of my family. So in India, as Lisa mentioned, my family emigrated from Iraq to Bombay, and a lot of families did. There was a big exodus. Of course, they were starting to persecute the Jewish people. And the commerce was good in India. The Sassoon family had left Iraq and went to India. A lot of people kind of followed them. So I'm showing you these because the fez cap everybody wore a fez cap. It was actually outlawed in, I think in the 1800s or the 1900s, because they didn't want the status. It was a symbol of status. But that's my grandfather wearing them. This is an uncle. And this is the shop in Bombay, one of the shops. So they would sell to the public, but they also sold wholesale fez cap. So I used the fez cap for this Fez a Storyteller as the patriarchal underpinning of my work. So this is the first piece from the series. And it has to do with, a lot of this has to do with the inequality of male to female, because those three ancient cultures, the Middle Eastern culture, the Indian culture, and the Judaic culture all share that idea of having women have a second-class status. So in the synagogue, that is one of the things that happens in not a reform. This is Orthodox. Their orthodoxy. It's not the same Orthodox as there is in this country. Anyway, the men are on the main sanctuary and the women are relegated to the upstairs galleries. Most Sephardic synagogues, you'll see this. It's just symbolic. And the males, no matter how young they are allowed to be near the holy books and near the Torah scrolls, and the women are relegated to the upstairs. This is actually photographs from the Magen David synagogue in Bombay, and the women are. This is the staircase where the women would go upstairs, and she's up in the gallery. So the story actually goes all around the Fez cap. This is another piece. This is on tour now in a really great show called Tradition Interrupted. You can see that's how it's presented. This is a close-up. This phrase says, this is devout men still say this phrase, thank you, oh God, for not making me a woman. The rest of it is a heathen and a slave, but that is excerpted. And all these women are women from my family. I used the braid as kind of the symbol of a harem, kind of a harem girl, and the veil is about concealment, but it's also about armor. It's kind of a pretty armor in a way. This is also on tour. This one is really about domination between the males. So the father or the main figure is always that has the most power. Now, my father was orphaned, and this is his older brother. So this piece has to do with his not so pleasant journey with his older sibling as he worked for him. So the story starts here as young, and it's really about the idea of dominance. It looks like a taskmaster's hat on purpose. There's says underneath there, because it had to do with domination, basically domination. And this is the last of this type, a piece. This is called Sister Fez. And they were all girls in my family, and they were like a big schmear. You know, they were, our autonomy wasn't exactly, we didn't have autonomy in a lot of ways. These are old world cultures that were banded together. So we were a big smear, so I smeared us. But what I did was in the upper section, because we were really very individual, I gave each child a segment that of their ruling, they could rule over. This was their individuality. This was I repurposed fabrics. So this was actually a blouse with a piece that covered the belly. And I made it more into like one of those mysterious veil kind of coverings, where you would see the eyes here. So, and these are from the Brooklyn Museum, the Turkish necklaces. So what I do is I collect a lot of things. I have a ton of stuff, and repurpose them and take them apart and reuse them and do all kinds of different things. This is like a magic carpet. It's also based on the Fez that I showed you, the one that was called Fezra. This one is a magic carpet by Little Maharaja. Here is again, the young boy encased in gold, and the older women are relegated like satellites to the corners. And this was an evening bag, and it looked like a turban, so I took it apart and I used that. These are fragments from saris. So I use whatever I can kind of works together. So I have all kinds of things, from sculptural elements to jewelry type elements. Now this piece, I put it in this group, even though it was made later, and it's Evil Eye marriage curse, I don't, I do. And this has a story to it. One of the disgruntled relatives put a curse on my mother. And then the curse was that she'll never get married. Was a big thing, because if the woman wasn't married, she wasn't legitimate. And that's the kind of thing that we had to deal with. So here, she does triumph over the disgruntled relative who becomes very fiery in the top and eventually loses her power. And here my mother was eventually married. But this is the window from the synagogue in the fort area of Mumbai. And here it is, I used it as the framing. And here's the tile work on the floor of the sanctuary. And here's the tile work. And I added Sumerian eyes, the eyes that are always watching. Marriage turban, fez, to have and to hold. Again, the turban was a male headgear, and it stands for the patriarchy. And here is the veil with the women of the family, or women in general, the bride and her children, 3 girls. But and it goes all around the whole piece, but we never get beyond an adolescence in the images. We're all kind of married to the idea of the patriarch here. So autonomy is something that we're looking for. Useless females don't stand there like a decoration. I hate to say this, but my father was always angry, so he used to say kind of not very nice things to us. And this is the piece that you have, Lisa, in the show. Quickly, we're dressed in an Indian garb and melding with the Indian women. This was a cushion, actually, which I took apart. So these were legs that were cast, Mediterranean-looking slippers were all served up on this Moroccan table. Also transfixed, I would say, with the kind of uncertain stance of those legs. This is useless females don't stand there like a bloody Momo. Again, things that were hurled at us. And here we're looking at each other sidelong, and the words, what is a Momo, is going all around the picture plane. And here we are with these images slipped into these, again, Mediterranean slippers. They're made of course, these pieces are made of many different materials. So here I'm using the fez cap as boobs, and it's kind of turning in on itself. And the idea here is that these women are kind of cast in an entertainment mode or as objects. And of course, these are the idea of, the patriarchy. I flipped on its head and made it into breasts. But it's the idea and that a modality of thinking of women as, playthings. I'm just going to say playthings, which are the ideas we have to fight against. So they're appropriating these fez caps and making them their own. And I started going to full-length garments. This is actually a sari, but it looks a heck of a lot like I made it. I did it that on purpose. There's a Tunisian male robe that's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art that just looks tremendously like. So then what I did was I added this train, and here the belly dancer / harem girls have their fists. Actually, if you could, it's not a very good close up. Their fists are in triumph, like defiance. And here I have the fists around this whole motif, which is a motif that's from here. And here they're in defiance, but they also look like they're in shackles. So there's a lot of duality in these pieces. It's saying, and the fez cap is hovering, almost like there's a person in there, but they're invisible. these are more recent digital collages. They take a very long time. They're very complicated. These are inspired by the Queen Fuabi was they uncovered her grave, her tomb. They found her crown, the type of crowns in her tomb. It's from the ancient city of Ur in Mesopotamia. So to me, that struck a chord. And I wanted, they don't know if she was a priestess or a queen. They're not really sure what her status was. But I use that metaphor as an idea for women's dignity and strength. So these are also women from my family. All this stuff is, from either my household or pulled from somewhere else. They're all made up. And then here you're going to see them in a piece that's really here on the base of this mantle. The crown, I made this crown. I wanted it to look like a bit like a cage, but also it echoes the geometric factor that's in this design here. This is a very geometric design. This is the front of it, which is the one in the show. So that is made from a variety of things, and then cast again, almost like the or metaphorical for the proverbial crown, meaning the power and strength. So that's the end of. I think that's the end of it. So does anyone have any questions? Should I shut this off? Let me just see how do I get this off the screen, Lisa? Do you know? Stop the share. Okay. So that's a sum total, a very quick sum total, because they're very complicated. They have a lot of layers, pieces.
Thank you, Camille. It's fascinating how you grew up around these feminine fabrics, and then you're sort of playing with the duality of that, like you're talking about the way that thinking about femininity, the way that we're represented, really we're judged by the way we look, and even more focus on that than we'd like it to be, like we were talking about with Jill. And so I'm to understand the fez was traditionally only worn by men, right?
Yeah.
And was it
Traditionally it's
adapted
male.
later by females then, or is that just something you're more doing in your work, kind of
No,
flipping?
I'm doing that. I'm taking this object that's traditionally male. I mean, sometimes you'll see a short fez cap on some of the women if you look at ancient old photos, but mostly it's the men who wear the tall one. No, I appropriated that I use that on purpose because both grandfathers sold. That's not only because of my grandfathers, but because it was a patriarchal symbol of power and status, and it was also the foundation of the family, which was all based on patriarchy. So that's why I used the fez cap as a metaphor, really, for that.
Yeah, I love the way that you're putting a spin on the materials, and you're also playing with the crown as well, this focus on the female power as well. Did anybody have questions for Camille?
Usually nobody has a question for me.
Well, you actually were very thorough, because I had several questions come up while you're presenting, and then you would answer it. You ended up answering
really?
the question as you were presenting. So, yeah. So do you have a favorite piece out of what you've made so far that you're partial to?
That's a good. I do like the one with the blue one that's on tour, the Fezra. I like that one particularly. It had the kind of the veil with the brass studs all over, which was a skirt. Nobody wanted
color?
it. It was like a bluish color.
Oh, okay.
I like the new one, the one that you have.
And you showed that your earlier work was painting and sculpture, and so more recently the fabrics and the head garments are more recent pieces, right?
Yes, yeah, that's what I've been working on since 2012. Now, fabrics did start creeping into my work from the other series. But they really kind of really remember I dealt with fashion all the time. I was I didn't say this. I worked for that lace company for 18 years.
Wow.
And so would go to, you know, Dior or the bridal houses or Carmen Mark Valva or whoever it was. So I was always going into it was on the west side of New York, so I was always going to the designers. They all wanted to be painters, and they would say, "Oh, I wish I could paint. I wish I had time to paint." But I was always in that kind of area where everything was about fabrics, and you know, and I love fabrics. I mean, they're gorgeous, and I admire fashion designers because they're very imaginative.
Now,
Very imaginative.
since some of your pieces are about your family, have you had conversations with them, like especially your mother or you said you had some of them pose as models too, right? Or
No, they're passed away.
okay.
I only have one sister left.
But the females that you had pose are people that you know though.
They're old pictures, old family photos.
Oh, okay.
So they're all family photos that you know, a lot of us have the same photo, and who's ever left in the family. They're far flung all over the world. So I use those old photographs and kind of try and restore them. It's a real process because some of them are very hazy. And you have to really work and work and work to try and get it more clarified. I'm doing that now with another piece. So yeah, they started creeping in and I like clothes. So
So do you imagine conversations with your mom or your sisters at all, or does it make it easier now that they've passed on to address some of the issues in the work?
you know, I never thought of it. That's a very good question. I don't know. My mother might have been, you know, interested in the idea because she was, she didn't have she had a great life in India, but when she got married, it all changed. When you come here, they had a very different life in India. It was more pleasant. The life here was all about work, 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 work. You know, she was a housewife, but she had to do everything. When in a lot of these other countries, if you have a little money, you can have help. So most of those families, no matter how you know, poor they were, they would have help. So it was hard for her to come
How old
here.
were you when you came here then? Or
I was born here. They were born
okay.
there. The whole family, except for my father was the youngest, so we were one of the younger families. I was born in New York. Like the whole rest of the gigantic family, both sides, were born in India. Different life, very different.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I like how you're using your personal experiences as well as themes that are universal.
That's what they're really about. I mean, I'm happen to be using my family, but it's really about I hope it resonates through, you know, because everybody, you know, they don't have to be a Middle Eastern person to have experienced this. You know, it's rampant throughout all the Chinese, I mean, all the cultures. It's rampant.
Definitely.
So,
Well, I think we'll see some themes overlap with our next artist. So the last speaker we have here is T.E.S. or Tess. Tess will introduce herself and share her work with us.
Thank you. So here's my sort of bio statement. I share a lot of similarities with Camille. I really enjoyed hearing your story and the ideas behind your artwork, which I strongly resonate to, coming from that region of the world. With the patriarchy, I mean, I totally understand it and I feel it to my bones. But so I moved here in 2006, but coming from that region, we do have a long history of patriarchy, and especially in Iran, where I come from, after the revolution of 1979, it kind of, the whole country went in a very dark path. And most of the atrocities were committed against minorities, women, and anyone who was opposed to this new version of the Islamic dictatorship that came about. And me and my family, of course, were largely affected by what happened. And it has influenced a lot of my work. Apart from what was going on in the government and the revolution and all the dark days after that, Iran has a very rich culture, and it is the most important aspect of my art, I think, because it relates back to any kind of Iranian art, be it from tile work to miniatures to carpet design, which has a profound influence on me and my artwork, obviously. So here I have a few images. I mean, I could have added along a lot more, but I just wanted to keep it brief. Carpet designs, Persian carpet designs are my greatest source of inspiration. And they came into my work a little bit later. It was a kind of like a gradual progression into morphing these designs more and more into my artwork. At first, I was layering it on with more figurative work. And then I don't know, at one point, I just got rid of all the figurative work and I just stuck with the designs. But I wanted to create like a new version, or at least my version of these designs. Obviously, I'm not a carpet designer. I'm not a calligrapher. It takes actually years and years of training, which I lack. I wanted to create my own space, my own version of what these designs are. So just to give you an idea where it comes from, we have these massive tile work, which are used for the most part in religious architecture, but also in secular architecture. You can see them because it dates, the tile work is actually predating Islam. So it kind of converted during the Islamic period, but you see it everywhere. I mean, you cannot escape this type of Islami pattern is what is called, if you ever do get to visit Iran one day, hopefully soon, when it's safe. But you can't really escape the beauty of it. So that's my greatest source of inspiration. Persian miniatures, which, you know, of course, is very flat. And just a few years ago, when I transitioned into just staying away from any kind of figurative art and just focusing on these designs, I came up with this idea of creating a series based on the word kakistocracy, which means the government by the worst of the people, which I believe is what's in place currently in Iran. So that's where the idea came about. So I started exploring different words that I identified with the current regime in Iran, the Islamic Republic. So one of the first ones was this one, which is called Second-Class Citizen. It is currently a part of the show. And again, thank you, Lisa, for putting such a beautiful show together and providing this opportunity for me to be a small part of it. I'm sorry.
The piece where it's shown.
It's in the show currently at the Doral Museum right now. So this artwork is about, as I mentioned, it's called the Second-Class Citizen, and that's where women are currently in Iran. They are considered second class. They lost all of the rights that the Shah of Iran had granted them. You know, there was a lot of family laws that were introduced during the Shah's reign, which Shah is basically the word that we use for king, which went against the Islamic Sharia laws that were in place. And a lot of the religious people in Iran, especially the mullahs, they kind of were really upset about it. And I always feel like the revolution that happened in Iran was really a revolution against women, because at the forefront of all the atrocities that happened were women, and the treatment of women, and how they lost all of their rights that had been granted to them. It's surprisingly interesting to know that Iranian women had the right to vote before women had the right to vote in a country like Switzerland, which was granted again by the Shah of Iran, and it really offended the religious class in Iran back then. But long story short, the revolution happened, and this is where we are today. So this series started with me just picking different words that related, in my view, to the current situation in Iran. And I started building upon this series, which I called the Kakistocracy series. These are different words in Persian. This one is a word used to describe the children of those in power who, through corruption, through their connection with the hierarchy of power in Iran, embezzle billions of dollars. And it's like an ongoing crisis where they embezzle money and then they flee and lead a life of luxury in the Western world. So it's kind of ironic that their parents brought about the Islamic Revolution, and then the children, most of the children of those in power today in Iran, are scattered all over the world, living luxurious lives. And Aga Zadeh is what we call them, which literally means kind of like sir, the son or daughter of a sir. That's what it refers to. And so this is another one. With the start of the new sets of demonstrations happening in Iran for the past few years, this is the slogan that for the most part people chant in the demonstrations, which is called Bisharaf, which means without honor. And in that part of the world, honor is your greatest asset. So if somebody calls you Bisharaf in Persian, which means you have no honor, it's like the worst insult that you can give anyone. And this is usually directed at government officials, those in power. Again, from the Kakistocracy series, I'm sorry, this is called Child Bride. And after the revolution, before the revolution, the Shah had increased the age of marriage, which traditionally and under Sharia law was 9 years old. He had increased it up to 18 years old. Oops, sorry, I think we lost power. But he had increased it to 18 years old, and all of this was taken away. And it went back after the revolution to having the age of marriage back to 9 years old. And it's a huge issue because I don't consider it marriage, and I'm sure you would all agree it's basically rape. And because of the poverty existing in Iran and countries such as Iran, families oftentimes, when they do have daughters, they are forced to give their child away at a very young age. So this was about the child brides and a lot of times these children, after being raped and giving birth to other children like themselves, they oftentimes commit suicide, or if they're ever granted divorce, they fall into prostitution. It's just a never-ending cycle of brutality that is also enforced on women. So that's that piece. And this is another version of the same title called Child Bride. And so here you can see in the description, 9,750 girls aged 10 and over, 54,500 teenage girls between 4 to 18 were officially married in that year, in 2022. So you can see the scope of the brutality, which is all rape, really. There is no such thing as a child bride. So that's that piece. And this one was one of the first ones I did. It's basically just saying dictator, which is also another slogan that people chant, and it's directed directly to what they call the supreme leader currently in power in Iran. And I also wanted to play with the whole idea of these, how dark these words are and how dark the meaning behind these words are, but how colorful and how rich our culture is, as opposed to, you know, I kind of like that contrast of the darkness of the words and the meaning behind the content, and then the beautiful colors that exist in Persian carpets, tile work, and so forth. So this is that piece. And this one was actually the first one that was sold from this series. And here is another one called Embezzlement from the same series. Again, I explained it to you, I won't go over it. How due to the corruption, they just embezzle money in various different ways and just head out of the country, flee to for the most part to Canada, but other parts of the world as well. And another embezzlement from the same series, again relating to the same content. And this one is femicide, because apart from the rape that occurs with children being married, being forced to marry at a young age, you also have a systematic killing of women from young age to early 20s and beyond even. Obviously, when you are forced into marriage, it's, you know, at one point you might do anything to escape from that horrific situation, in which case the family of the girl, because of the patriarchies existing in that region, or because of honor, they actually kill their own daughters. Or sometimes the husband kills the girl. And it's systematic. I mean, it's been ongoing. And as you can see here, around 39% of all murders between 2013 and 2017 were honor killings. So again, it's I started adding these drips of kind of like blood, but I want it to resemble also, I didn't want it to be too drastic. So at first I started to filling it in with black because I wanted it to also resemble oil, which all of this corruption and all of this is based on the wealth of the country coming from oil. But it also resembles blood. So here's the artwork up close with the colorful colors. And by the way, these series were the first series that I started actually working on paper. I had to change my medium because I don't have a studio space and I work from home. So I switched my medium to markers on paper. This one is titled Imam Arrived. Believers of the Islamic Republic call Khomeini Imam, which is another word for saint. And fanatic believers actually really believe that he is a saint in my idea. So this is where it all started, with his arrival. And you can see the drips of blood. And this is another version of the same word, Imam Ahmed, which means Imam arrived. And this one is titled Imam Zadeh, which means born from the Imam, and usually refers to the long line of Shiite saints, and how the government, the Islamic Republic, has taken advantage of the faith that ordinary Iranians have all around the country, how it's used religion for prolonging its grasp on power and creating this dictatorship. And so that's where this comes from. And this one is another one from the Kokistokrasi series, and this one is polygamy. And again, based on Sharia law after the revolution, because again, the king before the revolution, he actually put a law in place, part of the family laws, that forbid men to marry more than one wife, which based on Sharia law, you could marry up to 4 wives. And so that was also overturned with the revolution. And unfortunately, men took advantage of that. And a lot of times, of course, no woman would eagerly accept having her husband have another wife. So a lot of times it's forced. It's through brutality and how through physical abuse, the women are forced to accept having another wife. So that's where this artwork comes from. And this one is called The Shah Has Left. And again, it relates to when the revolution happened and how it affected all Iranian lives, but for the most part, women. And this one is called Shahzadeh, which means the son of the Shah, which is the son or prince. This is not a part of the Kokistokrasi series. I was actually meaning to put this one out. I don't know why I forgot to take that one out, but it kind of relates in the sense that the designs are there and then you have the text in the center. After the current uprising of the Woman Life Freedom revolution, which is ongoing, I was deeply affected by it. It changed my whole perspective of life, really, and how these young teenage kids were giving up their life for freedom, for equality. Teenage girls, how the girls, I was just mesmerized by how courageous they were. And men also backed them and supported them and revolted against the system. So this new series comes out of that, which these 3 pieces are also being shown at in the current exhibition. But these are names of those who lost their lives to this Woman Life Freedom movement and revolution. So this one is Khoda Noor, which was a beautiful young man, and he gave up his life for this revolution. And this one is Mahsa Jina Amini. After her death, this whole revolution was sparked actually by her death, because she was beaten for not wearing her hijab properly. And she went into coma and was announced dead, unfortunately. And her death brought about this whole new revolution. And this is another young, beautiful girl called Sarina. And she also, in her early, I think she was maybe 17, barely 18. She gave up her life as well. She joined the protests, was severely beaten and dead right on the spot. And This is dedicated to her, and this is an ongoing series that I'm working on at the moment. And these 4 basically are, I'm sorry, this one, and that one. These are the ones that are currently on display in the exhibition. So in the fall, I've been provided the opportunity to show with the Oolite Arts at one of the Walgreens locations. So this is my idea, which is basically, again, with using those same designs, but in the center, you would have the words woman, life, freedom in all different languages and different scripts. I'm planning to use Chinese, Hebrew, Arabic, any kind of script that I can get my hands on in the center of these series. So that was it.
Thank you, Tess. And that's a piece that you're currently working on. And are you saying that's going to become a large scale piece, or
Yes,
is
yes,
that
it's going to be
also in markers or paint, or?
no, this is going to be a large scale piece because it's going to cover Walgreens windows, which are
Oh, okay.
pretty large. I'm still working on it. I'm still figuring out how I'm going to do it. The idea was to do a big cutout of these, but it also has to be something that I can do at because like I said, I don't have a studio, so it has to be something I can do at home. So I'm still working on it, but this is the idea, and that's the direction I'm going.
In your marker pieces, the script is the same as the title, then the translation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I noticed you use a lot of bright colors, other than the exception of the one with the gold and the black. So it's almost like you're raising the saturation a little bit of color from what we might see. I mean, definitely the decoration that you're influenced by is also in very vivid colors. But do the colors represent any type of hope, or kind of the duality or irony in that way against the very painful subject that
Yes,
you're?
exactly. Yes, that's exactly the idea. I mean, it's just the contrast between the darkness of the subject matter versus well, it also relates back to Iran. I mean, Iranian culture is very vibrant. It's very rich. And Iranian arts is, it's filled with color. From tile work to miniatures to clothes to carpets. It's just filled with color. It wasn't until the Islamic Revolution that it seemed like the whole country was covered in black, and it kind of sunk into a abyss. But apart from that, Iranian culture is all about color. So I kind of wanted to show that within my work.
Right, and you're helping remind people about those really beautiful aspects of Iranian culture. But at the same time, you're educating, by sharing these statistics on your website, or next to the work about what's happening, that's horrifying, or what's been happening for ages as well. And something I learned, you know,
Well, I'm sorry, Lisa, it hasn't been, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it hasn't been going on for ages. I mean, I'm sure there has been instances of killing women or child marriage before the revolution. It was really, I can't say it was non-existent, but it was not
not
a
common.
statistic. It was not anywhere close to what we have today.
Right, and to clarify, what I mean is it's not it's happened in multiple places, not just
That's right.
Iran. And
Yes.
so in the US, for example, I learned that the US is actually one of the top countries for child marriage,
Oh, wow.
because it's only in 11 states that child marriage or underage marriage under 18 is actually outlawed.
Wow. I
And
did not know
so
that.
we can't just think it's just happening in the Middle East, or in, what we hear in the news about, these kind of stereotypes about certain religions, but yeah, this idea of
That's
getting
right.
married under age 18,
Yes.
it actually happens in many places. And you know, there's a lot of studies that your brain is not fully formed until you're over age 21. And, you know, as far as making those kind of life choices, you definitely don't necessarily know what you're getting into at that age, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So I really like how you're educating on this and how you posted in your Instagram and your website these statistics, and I'll keep sharing that as well, because I do
Thank
feel
you.
like many people are not aware of some of the things that are happening.
I have a
Thank-
question. Hi. Um, I was curious because we don't hear much about it now in the news. What is the situation with the young people in this revolution? Is it even alive anymore, or what is the situation, if you know?
Well, thank you for asking, Camille. It's absolutely alive. And I can definitely tell you because um, after the woman life revolution happened with the death of Masajina Amini,
Yeah.
there you can barely see any woman wearing the hijab, which was unheard of a few years ago. If somebody had told me that if you walk the streets of Tehran or any other city in Iran, you would see women without the headscarf, I would say you're crazy. I would say like that. How could that happen? But now it's just changed shape. I think it's still there. It's pretty much alive. People found different ways of rebellion and protest. Obviously, you know, a person who is revolting against the system who is alive is better than a dead one. So they have found ways to survive, but still carry on the protests. And one easy way to not easy, well, it still takes a lot of courage, but one way to do it is not wear the hijab because it's enforced in Iran.
Yeah. Well,
So
what
the-
about the morality police? Don't they
they're
come
still,
after them?
yeah, that's interesting that you know all about that. Yes, they're still there. They're trying to figure out ways because the number of women who are not wearing the hijab is so many. They're coming up with different ways, different ideas to trying to control the masses by giving traffic tickets, by enforcing it through fining women. But it's all bound to fail because of the sheer number of women who are not. I mean, women from religious families are not wearing the hijab in protest. And that's a lot. That says a lot. If you're a woman raised in a religious family and they just can't, it's like the dam is broken. I mean, they can't stop it. And there's no
Strength in
way,
numbers,
there's
yeah.
no going back.
Fascinating. I wish we could hear more about it on the news. We just hear snippets of things. We don't really hear
Right,
That's
that's
right.
what's
just
happening
focused to
now.
whatever the latest trend is, right?
That's
Um,
right. That's right.
but I
There's a
do
lot
see,
going on in the world, unfortunately, right now.
Yeah.
yeah,
much.
yeah, many tragedies to cover, right?
That's right.
But I do see a recurring, there was an artist at Art Basel who was drawing attention to the part of the movement of women cutting their hair or even
Yes,
shaving their heads in rebellion and also in mourning for Masa.
that's right. Yes.
So it's definitely still going on and still being talked about, but you're right that in the news we're not hearing about it as much because other things have taken focus.
Taking your point.
Absolutely, yes.
But that's encouraging to hear that many women are still you know, rebelling in that in mass numbers in solidarity, really.
Yes, and I believe it's not just I think woman life freedom. I really strongly believe that it's not an Iranian issue, that it's a universal um, chant for freedom for all women. I think um, the future belongs to us. I think that at one point women will find out a way to unite, that they will understand that a woman suffering anywhere is all of us suffering, and we should unite. We should take over. We should conquer the world, and I have no doubt that we will.
That's a great statement to close up with, but right. And so this is a theme, I think, when you're talking about universality, this idea of returning back to this idea of the focus on what women look like. And so women's hair is a recurring theme as well. If we think about women of color and Black women,
Absolutely,
there's
yes.
been a lot of pressure on things like, natural hair not being acceptable, or by certain cultures, or this pressure to look a certain way, and that it's not acceptable for many women to cut their hair off. And so that really just touches on this focus on the fact that women are looked at more for their looks often than their intelligence or their brains. And so we often have to fight against that, and really remind people that we're over half the population and we have the same abilities and brain
Exactly.
power. And it's interesting because statistically, women's brains are smaller than men's, but they have the same number of cells, or same number of neurons, and brain power as men. And so we're actually more efficient in our brain power, I guess you could say. But anyway, so any last other closing statements? Because I liked what Tess said here about empower. We should all be empowered.
Yeah, I think Tess summed it up really, really well. I think we all kind of feel in a similar way. But we can't forget about like all of the men who support us,
That's
it's
true.
not all men. It's actually just probably a small portion of very loud, pushy, obnoxious men that are confirming these biases and these things that are making women's lives much more difficult and much more dangerous. So the only thing that I would add would be that to support and encourage and give lots of positive reinforcement to the people that do support women and that do understand the challenges of being a woman. Like, for example, like my partner is a total feminist, and it's great. So it's like there are people out there are men out there. They're not all male chauvinist pigs, as we all know, but we cannot forget that,
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, like in the Woman Life Freedom, how much more of a feminist could a man be by giving up his life for women? So absolutely, I agree.
And also, I just wanted to thank Lisa for arranging all of this. It wasn't an easy thing to do, and she's juggling lots of hats. So I just want to extend my thanks and gratitude to Lisa for doing this, as well as all the other artists in the show.
Ditto.
Thank you. Same here, Lisa. Thank you so much for everything that you've done, all the hard work.
Yeah.
Well, I
Really
thank
hard
you
work,
because I appreciate how much strength there is in the artwork and in the women who are in the show. People have been very impressed with the work, and so it will live on through photographs and through this talk that we can post later, because this is really some very important topics for people to hear about. So I'll share the link that you can share. And we still have some events tonight at the gallery. So this is the last night that it is on view, and we're deinstalling tomorrow. So yeah, so we are still having events happen at after 4 o'clock, and I think there's even a film screening there tonight. So thank you again to each of you for your participation and your very meaningful presentations today.
Thank you for asking. We really appreciate it, and all the hard work that it was certainly not easy dealing with being, the traveling, the back and forth, the shipping, but I really appreciate your determination.
Labor of love, right?
I want to
Definitely.
thank you again, Lisa. It was an honor to be a part of this beautiful discussion with esteemed artists, and being a part of the show is also my utmost honor. I'm so proud of it.
It's a great show. I wish you could travel it. It's such a good show.
Maybe in the future at some point.
Yeah.
Well, for those of us who don't have human children, the art is our baby, right? So this is the way we immortalize ourselves
That's
into the
right.
future. So
That's right.